goodness. Okay, I'm flying solo today. It looks like there was a little mix up with my co-facilitator Gary there. But nonetheless, we have such a fantastic individual here today. Susan Eckert is with us. Susan is a mindset transformation coach, a speaker, an author, and a trainer. And I just found out you're an author of an upcoming book over here, The Rhythm of Flow. How cool is that?
Oh, I am so excited to get this one out, Maurice.
Oh yeah. And the other thing that I wanted to share is that we were actually classmates back in the day at Columbia. And I just remember there was this energy that came from Susan that was just undeniable. And matter of fact, it fit her last name at the time, Pizarro, right?
You want to talk about energy? I remember your handstands in the beginning, in the front of the classroom. Do you remember that?
You remember? Well, this is funny. This is so off topic, but you remember when we went to Ernst and Young and we were interviewing, and I just go, I'm done. We went through the interview process. I said, bag it. I got up on the table and did a handstand.
Yes, yes, and I ended up working there.
That
But
was
yeah,
awesome, awesome,
yes.
awesome. But no, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much. It's been, what did we say, 26 years that we've known each other.
26 years, which
It's
just does
incredible.
not seem real to me. Absolutely
It's
not.
incredible.
Yeah. And well, and I had to reach out to Susan because Susan has had such an incredible journey. She was a consultant and where she did organizational development and a lot of human resource related consultations. And she's very, very adept at it. I mean, awesome at it. One of the top persons that you can ever find on that. But then the journey began.
Yes.
Right? So we're just talking story here. So what led to leaving such a successful career as a consultant
Yeah.
into other things like photography and good heck, you've done all sorts of other things as well.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, Maurice, as a mindset coach, and I realized in hindsight, all of the work that I've ever done has always been about mindset. Even as a consultant, I was the people consultant, right? It was about
Right.
the group in Ernst and Young was called People Advantage. And my focus was always how do we get employees motivated, engaged, productive, right? How do we get the right people in the right jobs? And so mindset was always a big part of that. And what happened was, Maurice, talking about energy, was, after 15 years in corporate, I just started to feel like a deflated balloon. Deflated, and my energy, that's bad.
Right, right. Yeah, big time.
Big time. And literally, it was a quote that I found in a $5 flea market find that changed my trajectory. It was a diary series by Anais Nin. And the quote is kind of popular. A lot of people know it. I don't know if you do. And then the day came when the risk to remain tight in the bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom.
I like it.
I I stopped breathing. I was like, this is my situation. I am tight in the bud. I had been following the path other people had set for me, right? Having
Mm.
conservative parents, they were like, oh, you could be a doctor or a lawyer. And I said, well, I can't be a doctor because I faint at the sight of blood. So that's out.
Yeah.
But we compromised on the psychologist track, but I knew I didn't want to be a psychologist. At the time, positive psychology wasn't yet a thing.
Right, right,
And
right.
had it been, I would have so gone that route. But my thought was, I want to help people from a positive perspective, taking where they are now. How do we make change? How do we just empower people and move them forward? And so when I read this quote, I realized that I was not free to do what I really wanted to do, which was
Mhm.
guide people to greatness.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's so funny is it might sound so kumbaya to the audience about, you know, help people like that. I've actually seen Susan do this, and it's quite a treat to see. I've seen her even in your photography business. It was amazing to
Mm,
see the quotes that people would say. You've helped me to become. You've helped me to
mm,
realize something I didn't realize about myself. Push the boundaries, or whatever it might have been. And it's the same thing because if I remember correctly, you were a
yeah.
professional dancer in some pretty high-end productions, right?
Oh, in my early, yeah, my late
Yeah.
teens, very early 20s, and then I had the Lyme disease, so that stopped that. But
Yeah.
yeah, so for me, creative expression has always been important, and also I always found art as a therapy, and so
Mhm.
that's the thing. So when I left corporate America, I was doing career coaching, and I was teaching a course called "What Were You Born to Do?"
Oh,
And I
nice.
was, yeah, it was a really cool course. And I had so many incredible, between the coaching and teaching that course, I had so many clients go through incredible transformations. One of my clients was a director of the Blue Man Group. Do you remember
Oh,
the Blue
yeah,
Man
of
Group?
course. I love the Blue Man Group.
Yeah, she was the national director and she hated her job. And she's like, I need to do something else. Long story short, she ended up being a doula, and she's like,
Wow.
this is my purpose, this is my passion. So I was having so much success with other people. I said, well, let me run myself through my own program.
Yes.
And what I learned is I was this frustrated artist. So I said, okay, how do I put this art together with this therapy concept, this transformation concept? And I actually trademarked transformation photography.
Oh, nice.
So
Nice.
I did that for 15 years, guiding people, healing through the camera, helping them with identity, self-image, all those
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
mindset work
Yeah. Yeah.
with a
Yeah.
camera.
Wow. You know, I never even thought of that about being comfortable in front of the camera because one thing I always do, and I think everyone does it, goes, how do I look? Right in the picture. And you just realize, well, it is what it is. And
Yeah.
what I loved about what I saw from those comments on those
Mm,
on the people that you photographed was that they
mm,
were they found themselves in a way that they didn't understand was possible. And
yeah.
what was the how did that look? Because I never thought that
Mm,
you could incorporate that into photography,
mm,
and then it became such a powerful medium for people to realize what they
yeah.
truly were capable of in a photograph session. Blows my mind,
Well,
man.
absolutely. And you know what? So many clients at the time would say, um, I don't even need the photographs because the experience, I mean, they didn't mean that, of course, they
Yeah,
wanted the photograph,
yeah,
but they would say the experience and the guidance of the questions that I would ask them
right.
would make them think, and they would have to reflect. And it's all about, so one of the pillars of my mindset work is self concept, right?
Mm,
So, self
mhm.
concept, how you show up in
Yeah,
front of the camera is how you show up in life.
yeah.
And
Oh,
so
wow.
often we hide parts of ourselves. We don't
Yeah,
acknowledge parts of ourselves. And
yeah,
so, a woman, I would always ask, who do you want, what part of yourself do you want to celebrate? Do you want
yeah,
to show in these images? And they would have to think, right? So
yeah,
maybe it was a cancer survivor who said, I'm a survivor. I'm powerful. I've got this, right? And they want to show that. And you give them that license to show that so that they're
yeah.
reminded every time they see the image.
That's so cool. And as I thought about what a photographer does, typically, okay, make this pose, make that pose, instead of the real you. It's kind of when I'm listening to you explain this, you're in corporate America for a number of years, and then you realize this isn't really me because I'm molded by something else. And
Mm.
then a recent experience in a photography session, I was photographed with our rugby team, and the photographer had everyone do a mean face, like rugby, right? Rugby. And I'm the only bonehead like this. And then, then when it came out, I remember that a lot of the players said, "That's so you. I wish I would have done the
Yeah.
same thing," or something like that. And it
Mm.
that was just a photograph, man. And so it kind of goes in line with what you're saying
Yeah.
here, right?
Yeah, because you were showing, yeah, those canned, oh, smile for the camera. It just, you're never going to get the authentic essence of the person that way, right? You
Right.
have to let people shine as who they are. And that's what
Yeah.
you did. As soon as you said he had to make a frowny face, I said, I know you didn't.
You're right. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
It's just not authentic. It would have just been a total can kind of shot. But no, that's completely true. It's about authenticity. How are we showing up in the world? And
Yeah.
I was on a journey myself because I always hid behind the label introvert.
Yeah.
I
Yep. Yep.
score like 97% on the introversion scale.
Which
Very high.
which blows my mind because I would have never thought that when we were first introduced. It's like, wow, that's a fireball coming at me right there.
Yes, yes. I have learned how to behave in an extroverted fashion, but
Yeah.
my true energy is as an introvert, which is great because I love being an introvert, and I actually guide people now to embrace their
Yeah.
introversion, being an empath, whatever they are, because when we can acknowledge where our strength comes from,
Uh-huh.
then we can own our superpowers.
Interesting. I like it. I like it. Wow. Eh, eh, matter of fact, you just made me think. There's a friend of mine that I went skiing with. This was back in Utah, and he's big time executive, big time executive. I don't know how in the world that happened because he's such a joker, but and being such a joker, I go, all right, dude. Yeah, I know you're inspiring people because you're such a extrovert. And he goes, no, I'm actually an introvert. I just look, what? What are you saying, man? And sure enough, he says, I have to detach myself from people to regain my
Yeah.
energy, and then I can expend it when
Yes.
I'm talking with them. And I thought,
Yes.
that's heavy, dude, because I would have never, ever thought that. And one of the things that as these uh, mindsets come into mind
I
is
got you.
that we have so many assumptions about each other,
Yes.
and because of those assumptions, sometimes I guess it's not projection. What is it? Because of these assumed things, we
Yeah.
become kind of molded by those perceptions from other people. Does that make any
Mm,
sense with what I'm saying here? And
absolutely. So there's
right.
two things that you just said that are so spot on that gets me all hyper and jazzed. So one is that, right? So I always talk about us being like onions, right?
Mhm.
Until I find a better metaphor, it's going to be an onion. So, the core of the onion is where the pristine white, the juiciness, the
Yes.
intense flavor,
Yes.
the real essence of the onion is. Once you get to the outside where it's flaky and orange and crusty and not shiny,
Yeah.
you know, we become like an onion as we grow because the purity of who we
Mm.
are gets covered up with these societal expectations,
Yeah.
cultural expectations, gender expectations, right? All these expectations of how we're supposed to show up in the world. And it's as we get older, we have a choice.
Yeah.
Do I continue to own all these external layers, or do I shed them so that I can get back to the purity of who I am?
Yes. 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 Yes.
And that's a journey.
Oh my goodness. Well, it goes back to some of the studies back in the day because um I remember we were studying and there was a former Columbia professor back in I believe the 1930s, William Marston. You remember William Marston? He was
Mm.
so he is he was the creator of he actually founded the lie detector. And then on
Ah,
top of that, he wrote a comic book and it was Wonder Woman, Lasso of Truth, right? And then a lot of his findings were then incorporated into the disc profile, the standardized behavioral thing. And
mm,
it was interesting because when you're talking about the onion, so many people here's the real you in the center,
yeah.
and then you have these other two layers that people are trying to mold. But to your point, it's just we're
Yes.
trying to change something that's not meant to be changed in an individual. And
Yes.
how do you let that base, that centerpiece of the onion shine
Mhm.
and impact
Yeah.
the rest of it? How have you helped people get to that? Man, that was
Mm.
a long way to ask that question.
I followed you. I got you. Well, it's the first step is awareness, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's the awareness that, oh, this isn't mine.
Yeah.
I choose to release this, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there's always dissonance, internal dissonance. Remember that word
Yeah. Oh, yes.
in our grad program? That dissonance happens when we are pressuring ourselves to behave in a way that is not authentic to us, right?
Yes.
So there's
Yes.
all this
Yes.
learned behavior, but it takes its toll. And that's what happened to me in corporate, right? It's
Right.
like,
Right.
aside from the terrible situations I experienced, like sexual harassment and
Yeah.
racial bias,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the environment and the way that I had to bring, I felt like I had to put a little robot mask
Sure.
on to
Right.
step into
Sure.
corporate America, right? And I just didn't want to. I wanted to be me 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, there's dissonance that happens. And when we experience that, we have to ask,
Yeah.
you know, is there something that I need to release? Is there, but it takes presence of mind. It takes going
Yes.
inside, right?
It
And what you
really
said
does.
before about your friend who, he goes and he hangs out with like everybody and then he has to go back and recoup his energy.
Yeah.
In a sense, this is what the premise of my book is, the rhythm
Oh,
of
nice.
flow.
I
It's
like it.
about, yes, that's why I was like, oh, he just summarized my book. He didn't even know that.
That's so
But yeah,
funny.
it's about, we're trained, and in this culture we're so trained to focus externally all the time, right?
Right.
To focus externally. And those of us who are introverts, we know to spend time looking inward. But for some extroverts, that a lot of times I'll have clients who are extroverts and they have a harder time with this. But it's that going out in the world doing, but then coming back to who we're being.
Right, 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 right. Well, this is so funny because there's such an opposite definition of flow that I heard. I love what you're saying about flow, because it's flowing from you as who you are, right? It really is
Mm.
the real you. The fun. It's just so funny. We had a guest the other day,
What?
and he goes,
Tell me.
well, what they said was he went with flow the other way where it's being imposed on you. And what they said, and this will be, he said the opposite of courage is conforming. And it's
Mm.
interesting because he said because even a dead fish could go with the flow.
Oh, I love that.
And
I
so
love that. But I think the original, two, just
yeah,
to clarify, I have a book right here.
yeah.
Do you see the title? Oh, you can't see the title because I have my background on. Let me take I want you to see this.
I love it.
So
Yes.
I had never heard of this author and professor and researcher. I can't say his last name because it has like 26 letters in it. His
Right.
first name is Mahali, but he came up with the concept of flow.
That is so cool. Yeah.
And flow is that sweet spot where you're really just so into what you're doing that nothing
Yeah.
else exists, and challenge meets skill.
Yeah.
And so that you're super productive, super creative, all these amazing things happen.
Yeah.
But how do you get into flow, right? You
Yeah.
have to spend time doing and then also come back to being, where you can do the internal work, course correct as needed, right? And
Yes.
then it's about energy. In my book,
Yes.
I'm talking about energy
Yeah.
mostly, right?
Yeah.
It's like energetically, we're running so fast, so hard all the time. So many people I ask, do you take time to rest and recoup?
Yeah.
No, I feel guilty. Response.
Isn't that the craziest thing? I've
Yeah.
noticed this. Matter of fact, when I was working in organizations, and you know me too well by now, I just can't conform. I don't know what it is. There's something, if there's something that disagrees, I just back that, man. And so that was my big flaw for sure.
Yeah.
But here's why I didn't like that conformance. I did a study one time in one of the organizations that I was working in, and I started asking executives, what's the most important thing to you? Right. And
Yeah.
inevitably, they would always say family, 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 family,
Mm.
family. I go, that's cool. That's cool. I see you here all the time though, man. And if I'm here early, you're here earlier. If I leave later,
Mm.
you're here later. And I go, what percentage of time do you spend on the thing that's most important to you? And this dude, very intelligent guy, started doing the math and it said, he did it right there. You know what he came out with?
Wow.
12%.
Wow.
12%, man. And I started looking at all the other people, and I would have to say that
Yeah.
a majority of the people that were in those, especially in the leadership levels, were doing the
Yeah.
same daggum thing. And
Yeah. It's our culture. It's our culture, Maurice. And the
yeah,
thing is, it needs to shift. And this is why I'm writing this book, because we have, burnout. We have terrible
yeah,
mental illness, mental health, and well-being. It's like right since
oh yeah,
COVID. And there are studies and they've done research. Even people who are employed right now, like for
yeah,
some ridiculous percentage, are like, yeah, I have plans to leave in 3 to 5 years because they're
yeah,
burnt out with
oh
these
yeah,
toxic environments and stuff. So the idea is we can grab the reins on our own experience of our environment,
yeah,
right?
oh yeah,
And we can. And in fact, I just came across yesterday, there's a school in Massachusetts that teaches nursery school children how to exist like they breathe, where they have
mm,
periods of doing and then they have periods of pausing.
I like that. I like
Well,
that.
this is the concept of rhythm of flow, right? So they teach
Mm.
this to nursery school people, and at the end, this one clinical psychologist, her last sentence in her essay was, "It would behoove adults to do this as well."
It's so true.
Right?
It's so true. Oh
Yes.
yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, it's not sustainable. These this do compete all the time, and that's
Yeah.
it's the left brain. It's associated with masculine energy versus feminine energy, which is
Yeah.
the inner reflection, the
Sure.
pausing. So it's just I'm really obsessed with this topic. I'm passionate about it.
Well, inevitably, you've already used this stuff in
Yeah.
a lot of your coaching, right?
Yes.
What
Yes.
what have what have been some of the responses as
Ah.
you I knew it.
Ah. Rapid transformation. I will tell you that. So, for example, I had a client who she called me and she said, "I don't know what it is that I need, but I need to do something because she had a high stress job, worked like 70 hours a week, She was burnt out, stressed out, anxious, couldn't sleep, but her health was starting to deteriorate.
Yeah.
And I said, what's going to happen if you don't do anything? She said, I'm probably going to have a nervous breakdown.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said, okay. So we started working together, and I taught her how to grab the reins of her energy first thing in the morning, throughout the day, sort of do that pause,
Yeah.
right? And at the end of the day, how to reset her energy. Within a week and a half, Maurice, she was like a different person.
Dang. That's
A
so
week and a
cool.
half. And then from that space of calm, she was now able to create awareness, right? Understand her self concept, figure
Yeah.
out what she wanted to do next because she didn't want to stay where she was, right? So from that space of calm, she also could access clarity.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
So it's
clarity. How do you get a person there? Because there, let's face it, there are so many things that will act as a filter to defocus on that clarity, right? There's so many filters that an individual has, whether it be a work thing or whether it be a social thing or whatever. How do you make it, or how do you help people get to that clarity? So kumbaya of a question, but it's so relevant
yeah.
right now because in my own coaching, what I've noticed is that clarity is so lacking, and it's sometimes hard to pull back to what that truly is. So yeah, I'm interested, man.
Yeah. Well, you really want my answer?
Oh heck yeah.
Because you know I'm a meditator, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah.
during COVID lockdown, I actually pursued, I became a mindfulness and meditation instructor as well, because I find it's a really powerful tool that I can then teach my clients, right?
Yeah,
And I think, oh, just if there's one thing, just one thing,
yeah,
it would be differentiating that inner voice, that true inner voice,
yeah.
from the noise of what Buddhists call the monkey mind, right?
Mm.
So it's understanding when it's your true inner guidance, your gut instinct,
Right.
versus the ego mind. The brain is just structured and created. The mind works in a certain way, right?
Yeah.
There are neural pathways that are formed, and they repeat and they repeat and they repeat. So 90% of our thoughts repeat themselves day after day after day. 80% of those are negative.
Sure, 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 sure.
When we understand that, we can look at it, and as coaches, we hold up a mirror
Yeah,
and we say,
yeah,
do you really believe this?
yeah, yeah,
That way, the client now develops awareness and then gets clear. Is that mine? Do I need to release that?
yeah,
So I can
yeah.
move forward.
Yep, yep, yep.
I have a funny example. Do you want me to share a really quick funny
Heck
example?
yeah, yes, for sure.
You're gonna love this one. So I had one client who was like, I can't network. I can't network. It doesn't work. It's not my personality. She's an extrovert, by the way. She didn't think she could network. She goes, it always goes badly. I feel so awkward. People think I'm weird. And so we talked about it, and it turns out, long story short, she had this belief, Maurice, that she was told when she was 7 years old by her mother that when you meet people who are of a higher station than
Yeah, yeah.
you maintain eye contact and you don't break it, right? As a sign of respect. So
Right.
this 7 year old took this guidance,
Yeah, yeah.
and now in her 40s, what is happening? How is this translating? She's going to networking meetings and she is locking eyes with people, not blinking, being very awkward, right?
Right.
So it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
she
yeah.
didn't realize it.
Oh
She
man.
didn't make the connection.
Right.
And so once she made the connection, she was like, well, that's really stupid. So this belief that she had, that she got when she was 7,
Yeah.
was impacting her actions and behaviors now. And then once she released that and said, no, that's dumb, I don't believe that anymore, guess what? She was able to network and build her business.
That is so awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it. And you're right though.
Yeah.
We do hold on to certain things, and we just, and oftentimes, especially if it was learned in our youth, we think that that's an unchangeable law. And
Oh.
and when in fact, there's a lot of adaptability. I mean, I just, this is actually in a church talk, actually, where they were the couple, they eat avocados with salt, right? And then they asked for an avocado in another country, and it came prepared with sugar on it. And then in another country, they put pepper on it. And what they were going is, they were going, we like salt. And we thought everyone was strange, when in fact we were the strange ones. And so,
Yeah.
does that make sense? And so we have all of
Yeah.
these principles, if you will,
Mm,
that
mm,
might be adaptable into the different
mhm,
environment. I hate to
Well,
use
there's
this.
two things. Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead.
no, I go back to this Bruce Lee quote: "Be like water, my friend." Right? Because it conforms to the different shapes, but it maintains its integrity as
Yes,
H2O. But
yes,
yeah, and so sometimes I
yeah,
think some things we learn, that's what we got to do. Because if I'm locking eyes with you, and
yeah.
I'm in a in a rough part of town, it's not going to go well.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Right?
It
Yeah,
just,
there's certain parts of town you just do not make contact.
no, it's like, wow, so
Yeah, we could, as a New Yorker, I can say, yeah, that's true.
yeah,
Absolutely. But two
yeah,
things before it escapes and flies away. One is you're talking also in part about culture, right?
yeah,
So my first book was intercultural communication, where what I basically did when I would train people
yeah.
on this, I would have them take the invisible lenses of culture off and look at the glasses, right?
Yeah,
Because we don't see that we see through a particular set of lenses, and that is
yeah,
shaped by so many things, right?
yeah, yep, yep,
And so
yep,
there's that. So until we take off the invisible glasses, we can't see that we're looking at the world in a particular way. So there's that. The
yeah,
second thing is, I have an iceberg model that I use to
uh-huh.
help clients understand the power of the stuff that is in underneath the water surface,
Hmm.
right?
Yep,
And
yep,
just like icebergs, what the bulk of our decision making is subconscious.
yeah, yep, yep, yep,
So that stuff, we're not consciously aware that that's what's driving our decisions until we start allowing it to bubble up, right? Which is
yeah.
why I also, during COVID lockdown, I was very productive. I also studied hypnosis
I love it.
because I'm fascinated by the mind and how do we access and reprogram
Yep.
thoughts and beliefs that lie underneath the surface, but nonetheless that are not moving us in the right direction.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I like it, man.
Right?
I like it.
And when we find ourselves in loops in our lives,
Right.
that's a strong clue that there is a subconscious block happening.
Yeah. I like it. I like it.
Isn't
That's
it
pretty cool.
fascinating?
That is
The
cool. I
mind
never
is
even thought of it that way.
fascinating.
I think you
Yes.
hypnotized me, because now I'm getting this little twitch in my eye right now. Oh man, so if I'm doing that, that just started when you were talking about hypnosis. No, well, okay, so I got to ask you this.
Yes.
A lot, and what I found is when anything from a mindfulness standpoint is brought in,
Yeah.
a lot of people fight against it because they go, that's just
Mm,
soft stuff. That's like the
mm.
elixir or whatever it might be, right? How do you get past that stigma?
That's like saying, do you really think you can run a computer without an operating system?
Yeah.
Or without ever updating your operating system? Could you
Right.
imagine?
Yeah, yeah.
Our subconscious and our mind is the operating system of our lives.
Yeah, 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 yep.
Right?
So
There's
true.
that
So
awesome
true.
quote, like, whatever got you here is not what's going to take you to the next level.
Yeah, yep,
So
yep.
the beliefs that we have, the thought patterns that we have, the habits and behaviors that we have is not what's going to get us to the next level. And
Yes.
sometimes we have to jump a couple hurdles, right?
Yep,
Whether
yep.
it's self-concept, whether it's blocks that we have around money, identity, whatever it is, right?
Right.
So this stuff, it some people might feel it's soft, but I'll tell you what, the
Uh-huh.
results are incredible, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I had a client who 5x his salary in a single career jump. Single
What?
career jump. How
What?
did he do that? He did it because he changed his self-concept. He realized, I've done all these incredible things that were not on his resume, by the way. Nowhere to be seen on his resume. His resume read like a very boring job description, and I almost fell asleep on it. But when I asked him what he was really proud of, and he started digging up all these accomplishments and innovations that he had facilitated,
Yeah,
I was like, you're not this guy on this paper. Do you see
yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah,
So once he changed his self concept, he started going on interviews, and he went on this one exploratory interview, and this organization brought him in and ended up creating a position for him to head up a new division at 5 times the salary he had left or got laid off with.
that's
Right?
awesome.
So you tell me that's soft stuff.
Yeah, not a soft stuff at all, man. Once it makes impact on the bottom line, once it starts to,
Yes.
well, not it's, and the bottom line is probably a faulty measurement as much as once you start to realize what your potential is, you're able to match that with whatever it is where you are in that development of your potential. Yeah,
Yeah.
man, I hope that made sense.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I do think, and it's interesting because I think there's a lot of research that does tie things like employee morale and engagement and motivation directly to bottom line numbers.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it just becomes a question of, okay, so how do we do those things? How do we
Mhm.
increase engagement and morale and motivation? And I honestly think it's by helping your employees. I have a 3-step thing: own, embody, and deliver. So own your gifts,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
So many people, do you know how many people I speak to who are, I'm like, what are your gifts? What are you really good at? And they don't know. They have to think. I'm like, you don't know, right? So own, embody it, right?
Yeah,
Like that's
yeah,
what he did. That's why
yeah.
he managed to 5x his salary,
You're
and
right.
then deliver your gifts to the world.
I love the deliver the gifts to the world because
Yes.
there's a lot of folks that don't believe they have a gift to give to the world, and it's so crazy because I can see it, right? Are you
Yeah.
are you crazy? I know exactly what you can give, you give to the world. You're
Yeah.
awesome, right? Or
Yeah,
it's
we don't
very
always see our own gifts. We don't see ourselves the way other. So funny. I was just going to post on LinkedIn about this morning, but we don't always see ourselves the way others see us, right?
yes,
And so I always have my clients do when we're building self concept.
yeah,
If a client is kind of can't really see themselves, I
yeah,
will have them go talk to 5 people around them who know them well, who they trust,
right,
and ask them and they're not allowed to interrupt, to ask them what they think their gifts are and their strengths. And then
yeah.
without fail, they come
Yeah.
back with repeating themes, right?
So it's so true. I've seen it happen over and over again in that
Yeah,
regard.
yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. This is so enlightening because to see where you were and understand all the because you've always been a very thoughtful individual, always been a
Mm,
very thoughtful individual. but just to see how it has evolved into this ability to help other people in I'd say very non-traditional fashion has
Mm,
been really neat to see as your journey has progressed over the course of these years. And
mhm,
I'd say one thing that you've always been is true to you.
mm,
Sometimes you've been beating yourself up to find it's a you against you type of thing, but it's always been something that you have shared the journey, and then you have made the realization, and then you have not only increased yourself, but you have helped others increase. And it just it's just a testament to everything you're doing. And so
oh, thank you. Well, the thing is, I was born, I always used to joke, like, I don't fit into any boxes
yeah,
ever. Like,
yeah,
racially, growing up with, an Irish grandmother in Brooklyn and speaking Spanish in Puerto Rico with my Spanish, I just never fit into boxes.
yes.
And all my life, people would try and put me into a box. Well, you're an introvert, but you like talking to people, and and
So
I got very comfortable not living in boxes.
yeah,
You'll see me outside the box, checking the box from underneath, looking inside the box, but I don't go into the box. So for me, it's about, I actually wrote a spoken word poem called
yeah.
like ether,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
because it's a beautiful metaphor for my life, right? What is ether? Ether is in between the spaces, right?
Yes, 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 yes,
It's
yes,
the
yes, yes,
container, and yet it's not a thing, right? It's all outside everything, and it borders things.
yeah,
So I feel like I've always been in that space, and that allows me creative freedom to innovate, to make connections between things that
yeah,
people don't make connections
yeah.
between,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, oh yeah,
And this rhythm of flow is going to be exactly that, because I'm merging uh, concepts of spirituality and meditation and energy with productivity and
yes, yes,
self-awareness and self-efficacy, right?
yeah.
So it's going to be really quite interesting, and it's not fluff stuff, because it ultimately always ties back to the bottom line.
I'm loving this, man. When is this supposed to come out?
Yeah, well, I am thinking this time I definitely want to self-publish, because I've gone the traditional publisher route a
Right,
couple
right.
times, and it's been, when you get 4% royalties for international sales on a book that you've bled written with your blood, it's a little offensive.
Yes,
So I'm going to be
yes,
self-publishing it. So my plan is to finish the book by the end of February and get it self-published, and then start doing some speaking engagements on it, and
nice.
create a program around it, and start doing some training with it as well.
I love it. Wow, that's really quick. Literally a
Oh
month
yeah.
from now.
I've been working on it. So yeah, I was
Love.
in Nashville last week for this past week for a speaking engagement, and I literally did my talk, went back to the hotel room, and stayed a couple days, also just writing it out. But this has been in the works for a while, because I've been working the outline, doing the research. So now just comes the part of just getting it down on paper. And I've written,
Yeah.
as an introvert, it's easy for me to express through
Yes.
writing. Yeah.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And you have always written well. So
Thank
I'm
you.
I'm looking forward to getting my hands on a copy of this thing. So
Yes.
watch out. And
Well, I'm going to need a review
yeah,
crew. You want to be on my review crew?
heck yeah, I'm all over that. I'm all over that. I
Yay.
love it. Well, Susan, I appreciate the time, and it's always fantastic to connect with you.
Oh, yeah.
It's always a blast. Um, Glenn kills me, so you got to
My
tell,
husband.
yeah, you got to tell him howdy. But
Yes.
with all that though, it just goes to saying if there's anything we could do, just let us know. We'd be happy
Thank
to
you.
help out. All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, Maurice. This was so much fun. It's always great connecting with you. Now I have to come out there by your way and visit your beautiful state.
Heck yeah, anytime.
Yeah.
But until next time, let's definitely stay in touch. And I'm serious. I'll review anything you send. Okay.
Thank you so much, Maurice.
You got it.